This edition of The Accidental Author features a 6-part multimedia series covering the nuts and bolts and heart and soul of authoring a novel. These 7-minute segments are taken from an hour-long one-on-one interview originally broadcast on WESU-FM in Connecticut.
The Business Buzz. Live with Jeffrey Sherman.
Whoa! What's going on here?
From WESU 88.1 FM, Middletown.
We have a special guest on the Business Buzz today. We have Tom Avitabile, a leading author, fictional author. Tom Avitabile, author now of 4 books. My last little question, caller, thanks for calling in. You talk about, your own interest in writing. Is there a particular avenue or theater genre of writing that you'd be interested in?
Yes, my primary interest is on nonfiction. That could really motivate others.
That's a great career choice because it's very hard to sell fiction. It's very hard to get arrested in fiction. But nonfiction, it's really got the tops of the charts. I mean, nonfiction is almost and the beautiful thing about it is fiction you can't sell until you finish the book. Nonfiction you can sell with the first 3 chapters and an outline. Mm-hmm. So it's an easier road in terms of maybe getting representation, maybe getting to be published. Fiction, it can all die in the last page, and they won't accept something like it's going to be good.
That is a really good point. You can have a great novel. In fact, they say Mark Twain, wrote some great chapters, but never a great book. Like, in other words, it kind of failed, at least this particular critic said, in the last, 2 or 3 pages can make the difference between a great novel and something that's average. Don't you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, well, and nonfiction, the one good thing about nonfiction is how it works out. Mm-hmm. Because you've got an outline. In fiction, nobody knows where it's going to go.
Well, thanks for calling in. I certainly appreciate it.
Good luck, and write every day. It's a muscle.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. And we actually have another call, and maybe you can talk a little bit about what you're currently working on, your new book.
What I'm working on right now is kind of a lot of fun for me because Brooke Burrell was a character that started out as a supporting character in the first book, got a bigger role in the second book. In the third book, she had a major, major role in. And as I've come to know her, as I've come to be her shepherd, if you will, I've seen some nuances in her. I've seen some things that I unconsciously did in the formation, in the primordial soup of what my character was, that I'm so glad we're in there because now they're little tent poles that allow for a different kind of structure. And in this 5th book, Give Us This Day, that'll probably come out next spring, she really expands, and I put her through the ringer, because testing the character is always, they have to have a struggle, they have to have a challenge, they have to have a test. And boy, do we give her some tests and some challenges. And again, hopefully not too far over the top. But the way she succeeds through it, and I know I'm talking like a demented person about this other person who really doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. But it really gets like that. Your characters start to tell you. Your characters start to grow.
Again, you become almost friends, develop friendships with your characters.
Exactly.
We do have a caller on the line. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. And you've been listening to this show. Hope you've enjoyed it. You'd have to agree Tom Avitabile, author of now 4 books, is quite an interesting guy. But what's on your mind?
I would just like to ask, how do you come up with the ending? Do you come up with it right away, or is it more towards the end of writing the book,
Great question. And encapsulated in your question is the age-old debate. Are you a outliner or are you a pantster? Do you write by the seat of your pants? And both are acceptable. Both have led to great success. There are some authors who outline the entire book and, as you say, know the beginning, middle, and end. They may not know the details, they may not have all the scenes down, but they have outlined pretty much every major plot point, beat, subplot, and they're comfortable with it. And they've spent a month, 6 months on the outline. And that's a great process because then you've got the bones, so to speak. And then you add the meat to the bones and the body that is the book starts to take shape. Then there are the people who write by the seat of their pants. Also, a lot of successful authors are write by Stephen King, I think, was one of them. And that's where you're trusting the flow. That's where you're kind of like, trust the force, Luke, and it's between you and the keyboard or you and the pencil. But at that level, you might not know exactly the ending. You know where you want it to go. You know where you want the conflict to go. You know you want your hero in it to kill, at the end. But you may not be, the details may be foggy, and the details may be open to mid-course correction. You get to the middle of the book and you say, whoa, maybe it should go this way. So you're open. And I'm not saying that you wouldn't do that as an outliner, but as an outliner, you have a lot invested in the arc and the trajectory that you've created. As a seat of the pants person, you have a kind of little more freedom to let the book kind of show you where it's going, and to that end, possibly more organic, less structured.
Now, caller, are you thinking about authoring a book yourself?
No, I'm just, when I read books and I come to the end, I'm just like baffled, and I'm like, wow, how did they tie all that together? Like, when did they come up with that? You know?
Yeah. Well, listen, yes, 100%. Whether you're an outliner or you're right by the seat of your pants, that ending better, tie out from all the setups and payoffs. It's got to tie out. It's got to be satisfying. That's the key. Are you satisfied when you read the book? I mean, you should always leave a little something like sourdough bread to go into the next one if there is a next one. Leave one question dangling that maybe will bring you back if it becomes a series or if it is a series. But ultimately, the complete satisfaction of the reader that says, the time you've spent invested in my book has been paid off because now you know. You know what God knows. Okay?
Now, caller, I think that's an interesting point. Can you point to a book that you've kind of were really enthralled with, but then the ending kind of let you down? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I just got done reading the Dexter.
What was it about the ending that let you down?
It was right until the end. You thought that his sister was killed, and
spoiler
the very
alert.
last page it came out that she wasn't.
Oh, so it kind of let you down a little bit.
Okay, so what you're talking about there is something. It's a critical rule for authors. Never pull the rug out from under the reader. Never create a situation where you make them feel stupid, because it's not. I can in 150 pages back, I could say, and then he put the gun in the drawer. As long as at the end, the gun's in the drawer,
yeah,
and he pulls it out, and it's what he needed at the moment. But if I don't say 150 pages back, he put the gun in the drawer, all of a sudden he pulls a gun out of the drawer, you feel cheated. You feel like it's just been created at that moment,
and there's no connectivity.
There's no connectivity, and you feel dumb for not knowing that. So it's you have to respect the person who you intend to read the book, and you have to make sure that, not to a legal certainty, but to a kind of a spiritual certainty, that you've created enough red herrings and then setups and payoffs so that at the end nobody's mad at you and saying, I thought the sister was, I thought she took off and, whatever. You don't want to have that argument with the reader. You want the reader to say, wow.
Next time on The Accidental Author.
You have to love your characters. Even the bad ones, you have to love them, because if you have a prejudice against a character, I think the reader knows that. And I think that's when books become cardboard, or they become two-dimensional.
That's next time on The Accidental Author.